The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom cast dancing shadows across the annual Morrison family reunion. I adjusted my simple black dress, feeling distinctly out of place among the designer labels and diamond jewelry that adorned my more successful relatives. At 35, I was the family's designated disappointment, or so they thought. "Anna, there you are," my cousin Victoria's voice carried across the room with practiced authority. She was impeccably dressed in a Chanel suit, her recent promotion to executive vice president at Morrison Technologies evident in her bearing. "We were just discussing everyone's achievements this year." I fought the urge to check my phone, where an urgent email about tomorrow's billion-dollar merger sat unanswered. Instead, I plastered on a polite smile and braced myself for the annual ritual of subtle degradation. "Hello, Victoria. Congratulations on your promotion." I kept my voice neutral, remembering the stack of confidential documents in my home office that bore Victoria's increasingly desperate signature requests from the past month. "Thank you, darling." She air-kissed my cheek, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. "Though I'm surprised you heard about it, given how disconnected you are from the corporate world." She gestured to our gathered relatives. "We were just discussing how everyone's doing so well. James made partner at his law firm, Sarah's running her department at Goldman Sachs, and of course I'm handling Morrison Tech's biggest merger yet. Aunt Eleanor, Victoria's mother and my father's sister, joined us, champagne flute in hand. And what about you, Anna? Still doing that consulting thing?" The way she said consulting made it sound like I was selling magazine subscriptions door to door. If only they knew that Phoenix Consulting Group, the firm they dismissed so easily, was actually... "Yes, Aunt Eleanor. Still consulting." I sipped my water, thinking of the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning where Morrison Technologies' fate would be decided, though Victoria didn't know that yet. 10 years, Victoria mused, shaking her head with exaggerated concern. 10 years since you left that promising position at Anderson & Co. to find your own path. And what do you have to show for it? A small consulting practice that nobody's ever heard of. I thought about the private island I purchased last month, the 3 homes in different countries, and the fact that I was Victoria's boss's boss's boss. Not that she knew it. Phoenix Consulting Group operated entirely through subsidiaries and shell companies, with my name carefully hidden from public records as the founder and CEO. I'd built it into one of the most powerful consulting firms in the world, specializing in corporate restructuring and major mergers. "We do all right," I said mildly. "How's the merger going, Victoria? I heard there were some complications." Her perfectly maintained smile flickered for just a moment. "Nothing I can't handle, though I wouldn't expect you to understand the complexities of a billion-dollar merger. James, our cousin who just made partner at his law firm, joined our little circle. Are you still working out of that small office downtown, Anna? You know, I could help you find a real job. My firm's always looking for administrative support." I bit back a laugh, remembering the meeting last week where James's firm had desperately pitched their services to Phoenix Consulting Group, unaware that the mysterious CEO they were trying to impress was standing right in front of them. "That's so kind of you, James," I said, watching him preen at my apparent gratitude, "but I'm comfortable where I am." "Oh, honey," Aunt Eleanor interjected, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "you shouldn't settle for comfortable. Look at Victoria, she's about to close the biggest deal in Morrison Tech history. The merger with Global Tech will make her career." If they only knew that Global Tech was one of my shell companies, created specifically to force Morrison Tech into a position where they'd need Phoenix Consulting Group's help. Victoria's biggest deal was actually my carefully orchestrated plan to teach my family a much-needed lesson in humility. "Speaking of the merger," Victoria said, checking her designer watch, "I have an early meeting tomorrow with the consulting team. They're just advisors, of course, but we have to humor them." She gave me a patronizing smile. "You should come by the office sometime, Anna. See what a real business looks like." I thought about the meeting she was referring to, the one where I would be sitting at the head of the table, not as Anna Morrison, the family disappointment, but as Anne Phoenix, the reclusive founder of Phoenix Consulting Group. "Actually," I said, finishing my water, "I have an early meeting tomorrow too. A signing ceremony for a rather important contract." "Oh," James smirked, "finally landed a big client for your little consultation business?" "Something like that," I smiled, thinking of the stunned expressions I'd see tomorrow. "You could say tomorrow will change everything." As I left the reunion, I heard Victoria's carrying whisper, "Poor Anna, still a nobody after all these years. What a waste of potential." In my car, I finally checked the email that had been buzzing in my pocket. It was from my COO. "Everything's set for tomorrow. Morrison Tech's board is desperate to close this deal. They don't realize we're the ones holding all the cards." The next morning, I stood in my penthouse office at Phoenix Tower, adjusting my Armani suit, a far cry from the simple black dress I'd worn to the family reunion. The wall of windows offered a panoramic view of the city, including, ironically, the Morrison Technologies building where Victoria was probably preparing for what she thought would be her triumph. My assistant, Kate, entered with my morning briefing. "The Morrison Tech team is already in the conference room, Miss Phoenix. Victoria Morrison is apparently giving them quite a pep talk." She smirked, knowing the full story. "Should I tell them you'll be a few minutes late?" "Let them wait," I replied, reviewing the final contract documents. "How's our other guest?" "Mr. Morrison Sr. arrived 10 minutes ago. He's not happy about being summoned by a mere consultant." Kate used air quotes, mimicking my uncle's notorious arrogance. As CEO of Morrison Technologies, Uncle Robert had built the company from the ground up, but his pride had left them vulnerable to my careful manipulation. I checked my reflection in the window. Gone was the meek cousin they'd mocked yesterday. Today I was Anne Phoenix, the mysterious business mogul who'd never appeared in photos or public records. The woman who controlled their fate. "Send in Uncle Robert first," I instructed. "Let's warm up with a family reunion of our own." Minutes later, Robert Morrison stormed into my office, his face already red with indignation. "Who do you think you are, demanding a private meeting before the signing? Do you know who I am?" I stayed seated behind my desk, letting him fume. "Please, Uncle Robert, take a seat." The color drained from his face as recognition dawned. "Anna, what is this?" "This," I gestured around the opulent office, "is what a real business looks like. Though I believe Victoria's definition might differ." He sank into a chair, his arrogance deflating. You're in Phoenix? The founder of Phoenix Consulting. The same nobody you and Aunt Eleanor mocked at every family gathering?" "Yes." I opened a folder on my desk. "Now let's discuss the real terms of today's merger." "Terms? We already agreed. You agreed to terms with Global Tech, my shell company," I corrected. "But Phoenix Consulting Group has final approval rights. Rights that your daughter Victoria signed away 3 months ago without reading the fine print." His face contorted with rage. "This is manipulation. I'll fight this." "With what resources?" I asked calmly. "Your company is overextended, Uncle Robert. You need this merger to survive. But instead of seeking honest help, you let Victoria's pride drive away every legitimate consultant until only the mysterious Phoenix Consulting Group would work with you." I leaned forward. "Tell me, how does it feel to know your company's survival depends on the disappointment of the family?" A knock at the door interrupted his response. Kate poked her head in. "The board is getting restless, Miss Phoenix. And Victoria Morrison is, well, being Victoria." I stood up. Perfect timing. "Shall we go show my dear cousin what a real business looks like, Uncle Robert?" He followed me silently to the main conference room, where Victoria was mid-speech about her brilliant negotiation skills. She faltered when we entered, her eyes widening at the sight of her father's ashen face. "Dad, what are you doing here? And who is?" Her voice trailed off as she finally looked at me properly. "Anna." "Actually," I said, taking my place at the head of the table, "in this room, I'm Anne Phoenix, founder and CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group." I smiled at the shocked faces around the table. "And we need to discuss some changes to the merger agreement." Victoria collapsed into her chair, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. "This is impossible. You're just Anna." "Just Anna," I repeated, opening the contract. "The nobody. The disappointment. The random consultant." Each word hit like a hammer. "Who now holds the future of Morrison Technologies in her hands." The room erupted into chaos as board members realized the implications. Their billion-dollar deal, their company's survival, rested in the hands of the woman they'd underestimated for a decade. And I was just getting started. The conference room crackled with tension as I slowly opened the revised merger documents. Victoria's perfectly manicured nails drummed nervously on the mahogany table, while Uncle Robert seemed to have aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. Let me summarize our position. I began, my voice carrying the authority of someone who controlled billions. Morrison Technologies is currently leveraged to the point of insolvency. Your recent expansion decisions, led by Victoria, have left you with exactly two options. I paused, letting the weight of their situation sink in. Accept our terms or face bankruptcy by the end of the quarter. This is absurd, Victoria suddenly burst out, her composure finally shattering. You can't do this. We're family. I raised an eyebrow. Family? Like when you told the entire Morrison clan last Christmas that I was probably living off credit cards. I pulled out my phone, showing my banking app. For the record, this is my personal account balance. Not the company's, just mine. Victoria's face went pale as she saw the number. Several board members gasped. Now, the new terms, I continued, distributing folders. First, Morrison Technologies will be restructured. All current executive positions will be reviewed by Phoenix Consulting Group. Victoria jumped up. You can't fire me. Actually, I smiled. According to the document you signed 3 months ago, without reading it fully, I might add I can. But I'm not going to fire you, Victoria. I'm offering you a chance to earn your position. Uncle Robert finally found his voice. What do you mean? Every executive, including Victoria, will need to reapply for their positions. Based on merit, not family connections. I turned to the board members. I'm sure you all agree this is long overdue. The board chairman, Mr. Anderson, nodded slowly. He'd been trying to implement merit-based promotions for years, only to be blocked by Uncle Robert's nepotism. Second, I continued, Morrison Technologies will be merged with Global Tech, but under Phoenix Consulting Group's umbrella. We'll inject the capital you need, but we'll also implement proper corporate governance. You planned this all along, Uncle Robert accused, his face reddening again. All those years pretending to be just a small-time consultant. I built an empire, I corrected him. While you were all busy mocking my choices, I was creating a corporation that now controls half the technology sector in this country. The random consultant you dismissed now has a net worth greater than the entire Morrison family combined. Victoria started to cry, her expensive mascara creating black trails down her cheeks. This is revenge, isn't it? No, cousin, I replied softly. This is business. Something you claimed I didn't understand. I stood up, straightening my suit. You have 1 hour to review and sign the documents. After that, I have a meeting with your competitors. As I turned to leave, Uncle Robert called out, Wait. What about the family? What will everyone say? I paused at the door. You mean at the next family reunion? Well, I suppose they'll all finally understand why I always smiled quietly when they mocked my career. I checked my watch. 1 hour. Don't make me wait. In my private office, I watched through the security feed as they frantically reviewed the documents. Victoria was crying in the corner while Uncle Robert paced. The board members, however, were looking increasingly relieved as they read through my restructuring plan. Kate brought me a coffee. Your Aunt Eleanor is in the lobby demanding to see in Phoenix. Apparently she's heard rumors about the merger. I laughed. Send her up in about. I checked the time, 55 minutes. I want her to watch them sign. You're evil, Kate grinned. I love it. Not evil, I corrected. Just a successful businesswoman. After all, isn't that what they always wanted me to be? As the hour drew to a close, I returned to the conference room. One by one, they signed the documents, their signatures sealing both the company's future and their own humbling reality check. Just as Victoria, the last one, picked up the pen, the door burst open. Aunt Eleanor stormed in, freezing when she saw me at the head of the table. Hello, Aunt Eleanor, I smiled. Welcome to my real business. Would you like to watch your daughter sign over the family company to the disappointment of the Morrison clan? Sometimes success isn't just about making money. Sometimes it's about making a point. And as I watched Victoria's shaking hand sign that final document, I knew my point had been made, signed, and notarized in triplicate. 1 year after the merger, I sat in my expanded office at the renamed Phoenix Morrison Tower, reviewing the quarterly reports. The changes had been dramatic, and surprisingly positive for those who'd adapted. Victoria, stripped of her executive title, had started in middle management. To everyone's shock, including her own, she excelled when forced to work on merit rather than family connections. She was now heading our Asia-Pacific division, earned through actual competence rather than nepotism. Uncle Robert had retired, though forced out might be more accurate. He spent his days at his country club, telling anyone who would listen about how he'd always known his niece would be successful. Convenient how memories change when power shifts. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, already knowing who it would be. Aunt Eleanor entered, looking considerably humbler than she had a year ago. After witnessing the merger signing, she'd had a complete meltdown in my office, alternating between begging for favors and threatening to expose family secrets. Now she was here for our monthly family business lunch, her idea, not mine. Miss Phoenix, she corrected herself, still struggling with the dual identity. Aunt Eleanor, I gestured to the seat across from me. How's the family foundation coming along? After the merger, I'd put her in charge of the Morrison Phoenix Charitable Foundation, partly as a peace offering, partly to give her something meaningful to do. To everyone's surprise, she'd thrown herself into philanthropic work with unexpected passion. "We're finalizing the scholarship program for underprivileged business students," she said, actually showing genuine enthusiasm. "Though I still think we should name it after you." "The Phoenix Scholarship sounds too self-aggrandizing," I replied. "Keep it as the New Horizons program." She nodded, then hesitated. "The annual family reunion is next month." "At the Grand Plaza again?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I own the hotel now through another subsidiary. Actually," she fidgeted with her designer bag, "last year's model, I noticed. We were hoping you might host it. Here at the tower." I leaned back, studying her. "Interesting. And this has nothing to do with James trying to land the legal contract for our European expansion." She had the grace to look embarrassed. "He did mention it, but that's not the main reason. The family, we've learned some hard lessons this year. About judgment, about assumptions. About seating arrangements." I couldn't resist adding. "About everything," she admitted. "You've shown us all what real success looks like. Not just the money, but the vision, the strategy." She paused. "The integrity." My computer pinged with an alert. Victoria's division had just closed another major deal, completely on merit. "The family dynamics have certainly changed," I observed. "That's why we want the reunion here," Aunt Eleanor continued. "To show everyone that success isn't about titles or appearances. It's about substance." I thought about the past year. About Victoria's genuine growth once freed from family expectations. About Uncle Robert's journey from arrogance to acceptance. About my own evolution from the family disappointment to someone they now actually listen to. "All right," I decided. "We'll host it here. But," I held up a hand as she began to thank me, "I have conditions." "Of course, anything. First, it's a working reunion. Everyone attends a seminar on business ethics and sustainable corporate practices." She nodded eagerly. "Second, we'll have a special awards ceremony. Not for business success, but for personal growth and community contribution." "That sounds wonderful." "And third," I smiled slightly, "everyone sits in the kitchen for at least one course of dinner. To remember where they came from and how far they've come." Aunt Eleanor actually laughed. A real laugh, not her usual society titter. A year ago that would have sounded like revenge. Now it sounds like wisdom. As she left my office, I looked out over the city skyline. The Morrison family had changed, but so had I. Success wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about showing them a better way to be right. I opened my calendar to block off the reunion date, adding a note. "Kitchen seating chart, make it count." After all, some lessons are best served with a side of humble pie.